We are continuing with our awarding of the Global Grand Challenge Awards, and right now we're going to be awarding the Food Award. To frame this, I'd like to remind us how Singularity University envisions our end state objective for food. It is to create a world with consumption of sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to maintain healthy and active lives for all people at all times. I should say, of all of our framing for the Global Grand Challenges, this is the only one that we actually lifted from agreed upon literature of all the world's governments. We took this from the World Conference on Food Security, and it's agreed upon by all the nations of the world that this is our objective. And in fact, with the Sustainable Development Goals, zero hunger is in the sights of all the major institutions of the world, and hopefully in the sights of any innovator in this space. Because we have a lot of work to do. The challenge with food right now, it's a bit of an irony. On one hand, we have around 800 million people in the world who chronically go to bed hungry. Those are chronically food insecure people. And on the other hand, we have over 2 billion people in the world who are overweight or obese. In countries like the United States, over 2/3 of the population is overweight or obese. It's such an issue that none other than the chiefs of the Pentagon here in the United States have declared that a national security issue because we can't recruit enough healthy young men and women to be able to fight our wars, although I could think of better things they could do as healthy people. So this is a real challenge, in fact. In fact, before joining Singularity University, I should say that I was working in the food security world for many years, and even to this day, I'm on a 4-person committee that determines whether or not a place is in famine. And yes, there are still places in this day and age that are on the brink of famine. In fact, South Sudan is one of those places right now. Interestingly enough, consistent with the Amartya Sen's observation, famines aren't due to lack of food. They happen when markets don't work. So it's not food security is not just about production of food. It's about all the systems that need to be in place in order for people to be consuming healthy food. And in fact, we have lots of innovations happening in the food space. From farming system innovations, drones being used to monitor crops. A company in Nigeria is using, it's called Hello Tractor, is using SMS technology for people to be able to share their tractors. Also, our form factors with food is changing. Here in San Francisco, we have Soylent, which was created here amongst entrepreneurs, which is basically all the nutrients you need in a bottle and you drink it, and that's getting great traction. We also have 3D printing of food, which on one hand, 3D printing a chocolate with your initials in it may not sound so interesting, although that might be cute and fun. What gets interesting for me is when you combine that with, for example, taking insects, emulsifying them with the protein that they are, and now 3D printing that into a form factor which is irresistible to a child when she sees her name written in that. We also have innovations from the bottom up, so to speak, from molecular level on up. So one organization called Clara Foods is using molecular engineering to create egg whites, not from chickens, basically synthetic egg whites. Another organization you've heard reference here to, Mark Post at Maastricht University, is using tissue engineering to do cultured meat, basically taking the cells of an animal without killing it and propagating them in a lab environment so that we can have our meat, which is a meat product, without all the environmental damage, the land requirements, the water requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are other organizations tackling this through plant-based protein approaches. Beyond Meat is already on your shelves. So in fact, there's lots of innovation happening in the food space. It's a very exciting time. So we had I deliberated with these two judges here. I'd like to briefly introduce the two of them. We have Robert Opp and Bernhard Kowatsch from the World Food Program. In fact, I used to work with WFP, so I know their institution well, but they're doing some very interesting things, and the two of them are leading up an innovation unit within the World Food Program. And let's hear from them.
Well, thank you, Nick, and it's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you to Singularity University for inviting us. My name is Robert Opp. I'm Director of Innovation and Change at the World Food Program. Our starting point, and as Nick laid out in this challenge, is that there are 800 million people who are chronically hungry. That's 1 in 9 people go to bed hungry every night. Hunger has a terrible impact on people, both physically and mentally. And the dramatic effects that it has, particularly among young children, are impacts that you can't recover from later in life. So the issue of hunger, if you want to talk about how to impact 1 billion people, we're talking about 800 million that are suffering from not enough food, plus quite a few more that are having the wrong kind of nutrition, and both of those things have terrible impacts. The Sustainable Development Goals that Nick talked about are agreed by the United Nations, so 193 member states of the UN have agreed to end hunger by 2030. The good news is that we're making progress on hunger, and there's been quite a bit of progress over the last couple of decades. The bad news is that we're not going fast enough. If we keep going at the same rate we're going now, there'll still be 500 million hungry people in 2030. And so how to accelerate our progress is really what we're trying to do with innovation. We see innovation as a key lever in addressing and accelerating our progress against hunger. The World Food Programme is an agency of the United Nations. We're the largest humanitarian agency in the world. We have about 15,000 staff members across 80 countries, and we reach 80 million people in a year, more or less, with food assistance programs across everything that you can imagine, from crisis response, natural disasters and conflicts, all the way to the chronic malnutrition and food insecurity situations. And we do that with a tremendously large supply chain. So the World Food Programme is interested, as I said, in innovation as a lever to address hunger. And when we started looking at the things we could do, we really wanted to create a structure within the organization. It's a very large organization, to really find ways of uncovering the innovative approaches to hunger. And for that, to tell you a little bit about that, I'm going to pass on to my colleague Bernhard.
Thank you. So my name is Bernhard Kowatsch. I'm the head of the Innovation Accelerator at the World Food Programme. And what the World Innovation Accelerator is, it's really an activist startup accelerator. So something like Y Combinator that you have for for-profit and non-profit startups, we actually operate an accelerator to support entrepreneurs in the zero hunger space. So people that are actively pursuing technology or new business model innovations to create a world without hunger. And this could mean that, for instance, in our core work of the World Food Programme, in the area of emergency assistance, that there is a new startup where you use new satellite technology, where you use big data supply chain innovations. It could also be in the work with smallholder farmers, where you start working with also, like, for instance, new big data analysis, satellite data, also sensors, Internet of Things devices, including creating more livelihoods or job opportunities for people, so they actually are no longer dependent of external food assistance or less food insecure. So our core work, and this is why we're partnering with Singularity University, is to identify innovations, and we also support grants as an accelerator and support startups with coaching and also funding. So if anybody of you is interested in actually pursuing some startup or an innovation in the zero hunger space, as we call it, we also have a booth downstairs. Come, feel free, visit us. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I announce the winner, I'm going to share with you something that happened during the summer at our Global Solutions program. We have a caterer come in, and her team feeds us every day. And this year in particular, she went out of her way, and her team went out of their way to feed us healthy meals, organic meals, so that we could be working at our optimal performance physically and mentally. When her contract finished and she had to leave, I was surprised to see on our kitchen wall a 3-page letter written by her to us. She and her team were listening through the walls to our discussions about technology and about food and how that's going to be changing, and how we're talking about some of the very technologies that I shared with you early before, whether it be 3D printing and the like, or using molecular engineering to create food and the like. And in her letter, she pleaded with us to not forget that food is not just about nutrients. It's about culture, it's about family, and it's about dignity. So all the innovations and the entrepreneurs working in this space, I think we all should we do well to remind ourselves of that. And now, I will also say before I announce, we had a difficult time making this decision. There were several teams that we easily could have been on this stage, without a doubt. And in the end, we made a decision based on a team that we feel can have the most rapid and immediate and large-scale impact on helping the 800 million people that we're talking about right now. So that was actually what swayed us in this decision. So it's my pleasure to announce that our winner for the Global Grand Challenge Food Award is Harvesting. And we have here today the founder of that, Ruchit Garg. Welcome.
Thank you. It's my honor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ruchit, and I'm founder CEO of Harvesting. Before I jump into what we do, I want us to imagine this scenario. Imagine your year worth of compensation is given to you in form of currency notes, and you don't have to do anything to earn all that money. The only twist is you take all that currency notes, go to your backyard, lay it down, and you can only pick that up at the end of the year. Now imagine how many notes you will be able to pick after a few days of few rainy days, few windy days, or even fire if you happen to be in California. This scenario might seem very crazy, but that's exactly what happens for 475 million farmers on and on and on again. A single climate incident can not only wipe their annual savings, but can wipe their entire families. And not only that, the 2 billion plus people who depend on food on them are going to get severely impacted. There are some wonderful programs and billions of dollars allocated by governments all over the world, but that dollar doesn't move and goes to the right person because there isn't enough data about the farmer available to bank, which brings in so much friction. There is about so many years of claim pending to be processed in some of the emerging countries we are working with. So here comes the harvesting. At Harvesting, we are building an agriculture intelligence engine where our system is predicting crop yield information. A farmer coming to the bank and bank knowing pre-hand information about the farmer, its productivity, and possibly what is going to produce this season is going to change the game for both farmers, governments, as well as the financial institutions. So if I can talk a little bit about the science behind it, we are using technologies like deep learning and neural networks, some of the exponential technologies we talk about here, and processing petabytes of satellite data, soil and weather, and do some of the predictions as I mentioned. And the only way we are able to do these kind of crazy scientific thing as a private small company is because now we have access to exponential technologies. We can now afford a teraflop or more than teraflop worth of processing power for just $1,500 if you buy an NVIDIA card. And we have now satellites and IoT device going at exponential rates at much more cheaper price. All that together makes it so much easy for us to build and do research and commercialize it for the prosperity of the farmers. So not just insurance, if you think about it, these data points are so much valuable. You can apply it for loans, you can apply it for futures, you can even use this intelligent engine to drive all your smart IoT devices on the ground. Probably the tractors of the John Deere would need more intelligent power to run in future, and that's where harvesting brain can be used in future. We just started a few months ago, and we already have great traction in the market. We have signed MOU with multi-billion-dollar group in India where they do insurance brokering, and we have signed up MOU with ICRISAT, which is a CGIAR sister organization helping us do ground truthing and whatnot. We are also working with UC Davis and working with several satellite companies to help translate their raw imagery data into agricultural intelligence. Just to end, I would like to say that we can live without internet, we can live without phones, but we cannot live without food. And if we don't care about farmers, we are going to have very, very bad time finding food for so many generations coming forward. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations. There. Our winner.